When Timea came to Canada from her native Hungary 11 years ago, she had high hopes of making money working as a domestic. Her problems began with immigration.
Why are you coming to Canada? And I said, you know, babysitting, domestic, this and that. And then hours later, the guy says, the problem is that your story doesn't match with your contract. And that was the first time that I heard that I'm here to do exotic dancing. And I signed the contract, but it was in English, so I didn't really, and they didn't really believe it at the time, so that's what greeted me. But very long story short, they let me go, and these Hungarian people and some guy picked me up from the airport.
From then on, she was a slave, forced to work as a stripper and prostitute to pay off her debt.
The people in the clubs, do you think they realized what was going on in your life? Do you think they had any idea?
No. Besides that, I was 89 pounds and looked pretty sick, I think. I was smiling all the time. I was smiling because if I don't smile, I don't make money. If I don't make money, I get in trouble.
And no one would know her story today had she not finally come forward. That's the problem, according to this undercover police officer.
We know there's victims out there, but obviously if they're not willing to talk, we can't do anything. We know what this guy's doing or this trafficker's doing. We need them to come forward. And to do that, we have to break that wall that the trafficker pimp has built. We have an 18-year-old girl from
It's a wall that is meticulously constructed and protected, not with chains, but control.
What's the motivation?
Money. It's always money. Money for the trafficker, and it's very lucrative.
The UN estimates profits from human trafficking at $32 billion a year, the majority coming from sex slavery.
If I see the word young 18 or 19-year-old girl or whatever it is.
And while most Canadians think trafficking happens elsewhere, this detective says it's in our own backyard and easier to access than ever, thanks to the internet.
Just the same way the trafficker or the pimp uses that to sell sex, I'm using it as an investigative tool to find them. And at any given day, you could go on there and you could see it by the hundreds. It's newspaper ads, it's in our massage parlors, it's in our strip clubs, it's everywhere. I would be safe to say there's not an adult entertainment establishment in the region of Peel that does not have a victim of human trafficking in it.
Does she have a jacket?
She doesn't even have a jacket.
Police work is not just getting into the mind of the predator, but the prey. And that's why Timea is walking alongside them, giving them insight into the journey of a victim and why it's so difficult to come forward. Once they do, the police can bring perpetrators to justice. What they aren't able to do is help the victims get back to life.
They come with us, they give us their statement, they tell us their little life story, and at the end of the interview, they're looking at you across the table and saying, well, now what do I do? And that's their biggest fear.
That's when people like Naomi Baker get involved.
When you hear their stories of why they decided to do what they're doing and how they got trapped and how they got literally brainwashed and coerced, the stories are endless and everyone rips your heart out every time you hear it.
Baker founded Canada Fights Human Trafficking, a national organization that not only finds safe houses for victims, but attempts to raise awareness of the issue. She says most victims are Canadian citizens, the majority of whom are Aboriginal girls and women. The problem is it's a difficult crime to track and quantify, though Canada Fights Human Trafficking is overwhelmed with demands.
Canada is being inundated with people trafficking children specifically because we let them. The average sentence right now in Canada is 2.5 months. That is unacceptable. It's one thing to be a nation of mercy, but what is mercy without justice?
It's that question that prompted Winnipeg MP Joy Smith's fight, one that started close to home.
When I was a member of the Manitoba Legislature, my son was in the Integrated Child Exploitation Unit, and his hair turned gray in less than 2 years.
She soon found out why.
Once I started working with the victims, I feel that the police officers and the on-the-ground people, the NGOs who work with these victims are the real heroes in this country. And I think as a parliamentarian, it's very, very necessary that Canadians are aware and know how to protect their children.
Protecting is one thing, prosecuting the crime is another. Canada's first convicted child human trafficker received a 3-year sentence for selling 2 girls aged 15 and 14. And a recent RCMP report found, despite a high incidence of the crime, only 36 cases of human trafficking made it to court. It's those kind of numbers that motivated Smith to do something about it.
If my bill passes through the Senate, we will have mandatory minimums of 5 years for people who sell children, 18 years and under. And if they rape them or do that kind of thing to them, they will get 6 years. Now that hurts me because I'd like them to have 96 years, but I would have had a court challenge. So I've had to very carefully construct that law so it wouldn't get a court challenge and that it would pass.
The good news is Bill C-268 is now law, and the government has since launched 2 national campaigns to raise awareness of human trafficking in Canada, specifically how to spot potential victims. The bad news is, despite the prevalence of this crime, there are few, if any, convictions. And that's why the Salvation Army is enlisting troops around the world to pray for justice.
It's definitely happening here. It's very scary, it's very real, and yeah, these victims need to be released from their captives, so that's why we want to pray.
The Weekend of Prayer for Victims of Sex Trafficking started out as a small initiative, but has since grown worldwide. Event coordinator Rochelle McAlister says they want as many churches and Christian organizations to get on board to pray not only for the victims, but the perpetrators of these crimes.
We believe that God has the power to change people, and if there wasn't a demand for commercial sex, that there would be no human sex trafficking.
Apart from prayer, they're also harnessing the power of social media. They're asking people to use Facebook to raise awareness of the event and the issue.
So we're encouraging people during the Weekend of Prayer to change your Facebook status to a message about trafficking. You can get details on the website. Also to change your picture to a trafficking picture, which is also available. You can also raise awareness. That's a really important part, just getting the story out, because so many people don't realize that sex trafficking is happening in Canada.
There are many stories of human trafficking in Canada. Most go unheard. The voices that speak for them, though, are loud and clear.
Awareness is a really big piece of this, and again, prayer, it seems so simple, but we really believe that it can make a huge difference.
In Toronto, Denise, Lodde, 100 Huntley Street.